Hello, it's me, the Avatar Fanatic, and today we will be talking about how Ozai did absolutely nothing wrong. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get on to the video. Ozai is often a misunderstood figure in the Avatar universe. People watching the show often attribute the decimation of the whole Air Nation and being an absolute terrible father to his own kids being things making him terrible morally. I will be delving into why that is not the case, exploring the mind of why Ozai is morally impartial, acts in his best interest, and how that serves his actions throughout the series overall. Ozai is shown to scar Zuko's face for life, but what context the series doesn't share is Ozai giving Zuko orders of finding and capturing the Avatar, and Zuko fails to do that terribly, and even lets him get away. Ozai is outraged more by the fact that Zuko is taking a seat at the table, talking out of term and over his father and giving him no respect. Ozai, as a result, teaches him a valuable lesson of discipline and accountability. Now, you might think this punishment is harsh, but it's also tradition. At the time of the event, you will notice Iroh closing his eyes of fear, but not objecting to reprimanding of Zuko. Ozai mentions suffering will be Zuko's teacher. Suffering is needed in life. As heir to the Fire Lord, Zuko needs to learn the good and bad of the world. Go through hardship. That's why I think this action, while not necessarily morally right, it is definitely morally justifiable. One of the other comments Ozai has made towards his children was that Azula was born lucky and that Zuko was lucky to be born. While on its own a terrible thing to say to your own kid, what Ozai was really alluding to here was he was lucky to be alive, to be born again. After his disciplines and his encounters with Aang, Zuko was lucky to be born again. He mentions that Azula was born lucky. This was because she had friends on her side, that she socialized and related to. She had things Zuko didn't have. I would argue Ozai was merely making an observation, only stating his claims in poor wording. People would often cite his divorce with Ursa as being another irredeemable action Ozai has made. But I would argue Ursa wanted out of the marriage. Ozai gave her an out. As he was initially going to kill Zuko, she took the initiative to kill Azulon instead. She left. All the time passed and he never broke his word. And his promise. He kept and loved his son. Kept them in the royal buildings until near adulthood. The initial want to kill Zuko for his misdeeds were justifiable. He was only banished for terrible conduct, as I mentioned earlier. Zuko also lied to his own father. He said that he had killed the Avatar. He had finally followed his father's orders. When he had figured out that Zuko had lied to him, he got justifiably angry. He had lied to his own father, to the Fire Lord. Only trying to advance the national interest of his own nation, Ozai said to Zuko to get out of his sight, and for good reason. Zuko, also in the same encounter, states that he will not follow his orders anymore, and even draws his swords on his own father. What type of kid would do that to his own father? A lot of you will cite Ozai killing his own father as a morally bad thing that he does. I disagree. He was initially going to hurt Zuko, but changed course through negotiation. I would argue it was an eye for an eye, and a death for a death. While Zuko's confrontation came from lies, Ozai's actions came from truth, and he kept his word with what he did. Zuko calls his dad a monster out of resentment. Aang sees the world clearly, and calls Ozai a human being, and that he is. Although his temper can get the better of him, it can get the better of us all. Iroh talks about Ozai with respect, although with disagreements about the methods that they would use to rule the Fire Nation. Iroh doesn't want to fight his brother. Ozai loses the Battle of Wills to Aang, and surrenders his powers willingly. It was actually Sozin's original plan to eradicate the Air Nation, not Ozai's. It was Azulon who had prolonged the war, not Ozai. Ozai hadn't been in power for more than 5 years at this point. I would argue Ozai needed time to negotiate peace talks on his terms. He waited until Sozin's comet for the biggest advantage his nation could get. so he could talk with the Avatar and get a favorable deal for his nation. He fought with Aang, lost, and accepted the consequence of losing the battle and the war with his eventual imprisonment. I would argue his imprisonment was inhumane. He looked in suboptimal conditions. This was no way to treat a once revered leader. He was usurped from the throne by his own son. Comparing this to the Azulon overthrow would be a false equivalency, a logical fallacy many people would use. Ozai was morally impartial. Azulon was a horrible person. Overall, Ozai's life was him working his way up from being a prodigy, had a monster of a father, rose above it, and became Fire Lord. And he used his power to affirm the cooperation of all four nations, for the better or worse. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload more content. And it is me, until next time, the Avatar Fanatic out.